The subway car lurched to a halt between stations, the lights flickering like a dying heartbeat, and Robert slammed his fist against the graffiti-scarred window, his knuckles splitting open on the glass. "Fuck you," he whispered to the empty seat across from him, the words tasting like bile after the voicemail from his ex. Mark's voice, cold and final. "It's over, Rob. I can't do this anymore." Blood trickled down his hand, warm and accusing, as the doors finally hissed open at 14th Street, and that's when he saw him. A stranger with eyes like smoked amber, leaning against the pole, smiling. Not at the crowd, but straight at Robert, as if he'd been waiting his whole life for that exact shade of broken. Robert froze, his breath catching in his throat like a hook. The man's smile wasn't pitying or polite. It was electric, a spark that cut through the stale air of the train, pulling Robert forward despite the swarm of rush-hour zombies shoving past. He stepped off the platform, heart pounding louder than the screech of wheels on rails, and the stranger followed, casual as if they'd rehearsed this in some forgotten dream. "Rough day?" the man asked, his voice low and gravelly, laced with that easy Brooklyn drawl that made Robert's skin prickle. "You have no idea?" Robert muttered, wiping his bloody hand on his jeans, suddenly hyper-aware of the damp October chill seeping through his hoodie. They stood there on the grimy tiles, the echo of announcements blurring into white noise, and for a split second, Robert swore he'd seen those eyes before. Not in a bar or a grinder swipe, but in the feverish haze of childhood nightmares, the kind where you'd wake up gasping, convinced you'd lost something irreplaceable. The stranger extended a hand, calloused from what Robert would later learn was years of hauling camera gear. "Alex, and yeah, I might." Robert didn't plan on spilling his guts to a total stranger over shitty diner coffee 2 blocks from the station. But that's exactly what happened. The place was a relic, formica counters sticky with syrup residue, the jukebox crooning some forgotten Springsteen track about highways and heartbreak. Alex slid into the booth opposite him, his leather jacket creaking softly, and ordered black coffee with a side of fries, like he owned the joint. Robert, still buzzing from the adrenaline of that smile, found himself talking about Mark, the architect who'd promised forever in their cramped Williamsburg loft but bailed when Robert's freelance graphic design gigs dried up and the fights turned ugly. "He said I was too much," Robert confessed, staring into his untouched mug. "Too emotional, like loving hard is some kind of defect." Alex listened without interrupting, his fingers drumming a slow rhythm on the table. Tap tap, pause, tap, like Morse code for something Robert couldn't decode yet. When he finally spoke, it was with a quiet intensity that made the diner's fluorescent hum fade. "Nah, man, loving hard? That's the only way that sticks. The rest is just noise." He pushed the fries toward Robert, a piece offering dusted with salt and grease. "Eat. You look like you haven't in days." They talked until the waitress flipped the closed sign, the sky outside bruising purple with dusk. Alex was a documentary filmmaker, scraping by on grants and gigs shooting indie bands in dingy basements. 34, originally from Philly but transplanted to Bushwick 5 years ago after his own messy divorce. From a woman he'd loved but never quite fit with. "I figured it out too late," Alex said, his gaze dropping to the scarred tabletop. "That the dreams I had as a kid, the ones about holding hands with the boy next door, they weren't just kid stuff. They were me." Robert's pulse quickened, a familiar ache blooming in his chest. He'd known he was gay since he was 12, stealing glances at the lifeguard at the community pool in suburban Ohio, but coming out had been a war. His dad's Bible-thumping disapproval, his mom's teary silences. New York was supposed to be the promised land, a city of reinvention where you could hustle your way to belonging. Instead, it had chewed him up. Dead-end jobs, hookups that left him hollow, and now Mark's ghost haunting every corner. But Alex, sitting there with his crooked grin and the faint scar above his left eyebrow, like a punctuation mark on a half-finished sentence, felt like a map to uncharted territory. By the time they stepped out into the night, the air crisp with the promise of rain, Robert's hand brushed Alex's as they walked toward the L train. Neither pulled away. "This is crazy," Robert laughed, half nervous, half thrilled. "I don't even know your last name." "Harper," Alex supplied, bumping his shoulder lightly. "And yours?" "Langley, but call me Rob. Everyone does." They exchanged numbers under the buzzing street lamp, the kind of moment that felt scripted for a rom-com, except this was New York, where magic happened in the cracks between concrete. That night, alone in his studio apartment overlooking a brick wall, Robert couldn't sleep. He pulled out his sketchpad, the one he hadn't touched since Mark, and drew Alex from memory. The curve of his jaw, the way his lashes cast shadows when he laughed. It was rough, charcoal smudges bleeding into the page, but it captured something raw, the spark of possibility. As thunder rumbled in the distance, Robert whispered to the empty room, "What if this is it? What if he's the one I've been dreaming about?" The weeks blurred into a montage of stolen moments, the kind that made Robert believe in serendipity again. Their first real date was at the High Line, wandering the elevated tracks as leaves turned fiery under the November sun. Alex brought a thermos of spiked cider. Because fuck the cold, he'd grinned. And they sat on a bench overlooking the Hudson, shoulders touching, talking about everything and nothing. Robert confessed his recurring dream. A faceless man on a train, reaching out through fog, his smile the only clear thing in the haze. "I've had it since I was a kid," he said, voice barely above the wind. "Stupid, right?" Alex's eyes softened, that amber glow pulling Robert in like gravity. "Not stupid. Sounds like your heart's been leaving you breadcrumbs." He leaned in, tentative, and their lips met, soft at first, then deepening with the urgency of two people who'd waited too long for this. It tasted like cinnamon and rain, and when they broke apart, Alex cupped Robert's face, thumb tracing the line of his cheekbone. "I've been looking for you too, Rob, even if I didn't know it." From there, it snowballed. Weekends tangled in Alex's Bushwick walk-up, sheets rumpled and coffee brewing on the fire escape. Alex's place was a chaos of film reels and Polaroids pinned to the walls, portraits of street kids in Philly, drag queens mid-performance in the Village. Robert would sketch while Alex edited footage on his ancient Mac, their feet entwined under the desk. They cooked disastrous meals together. Burnt risotto one night, salvaged by takeout dumplings, and argued passionately over Scorsese versus Tarantino. Bodies pressed close in the afterglow. But beneath the romance, fissures began to show. Robert noticed Alex's phone buzzing late at night, silenced quickly with a mumbled, "Work." And the dreams? They intensified, the stranger's face sharpening into Alex's, but now laced with dread. A shadow lurking just beyond the platform. Robert pushed it down, chalking it up to old baggage. Mark had done that to him, planted seeds of doubt that bloomed into paranoia. This was different. Alex was different. One crisp December evening, after a screening of Alex's short film at a loft in Soho, grainy footage of queer elders sharing stories of the AIDS crisis, raw and unflinching, Robert pulled him aside in the alley, snow flurrying like confetti. "This is real, right?" he asked, voice cracking. "Us." Alex pulled him close, breath warm against his ear. "Real as the city lights, Rob. You're my anchor in this storm." They kissed fiercely, oblivious to the revelers spilling out, and for a moment, Robert believed him utterly. Holiday lights strung across Bleecker Street twinkled like false promises as Robert and Alex navigated the throng of shoppers, arms laden with bags from the Union Square market. It was their first Christmas together, and Robert had insisted on the full cliché. A scrubby tree from a corner lot, strings of popcorn garland he'd burned his fingers making. Alex humored him, though his grin held a shadow, like he was humoring a kid with a crush. "You're turning me into a Hallmark sap," he'd teased that morning, but his eyes lingered on Robert with a hunger that erased any doubt. They'd been together 2 months now, and the rhythm felt effortless. Mornings where Alex traced lazy patterns on Robert's back, afternoons lost in galleries on the Lower East Side, evenings where they'd collapse on the couch watching old Hepburn films, Alex's head in Robert's lap. Robert had even started pitching ideas for a graphic novel, inspired by Alex's stories. A queer odyssey through America's underbelly, from dusty Midwest towns to neon-lit coasts. "You're my muse," Robert murmured one night, pencil flying across the page as Alex dozed beside him. But the cracks widened subtly. Alex's late nights on shoots stretched longer, his laugh a beat too forced when Robert asked about the calls. And then, the dreams morphed. The train car now derailed, Alex's smile twisting into a scream as shadows swallowed him whole. Robert woke sweating, heart hammering, and Alex would stir, pulling him close without a word. Just a nightmare. Robert would lie, burying his face in Alex's neck, inhaling the scent of sandalwood and smoke that grounded him. New Year's Eve sealed it, or so Robert thought. They watched the ball drop from a rooftop party in the meatpacking district, champagne fizzing on their tongues as fireworks bloomed over the skyline. To us? Alex toasted, clinking glasses, his free hand slipping into Robert's back pocket. To dreaming big and waking up to this. The kiss that followed was fireworks of its own. Deep and devouring, bodies swaying to the bass thumping below. Later, in the cab home, Alex's fingers intertwined with Robert's, and he whispered, "I love you, Rob. Never thought I'd say that and mean it like this." Robert's chest swelled, tears pricking his eyes. "Love you too. More than the dreams." January brought the cold snap, the kind that turned the East River to ice and New Yorkers feral. Robert threw himself into his work, landing a gig illustrating for a queer-lit mag, his panels alive with the electric tension he'd found in Alex. But doubt crept in during quiet moments. A forgotten jacket in the hall that smelled like unfamiliar cologne. A text notification flashing, "Miss you tonight," from an unsaved number. Robert shoved it down, telling himself it was the city's paranoia, the echo of Mark's betrayal still ringing. One blizzard-ravaged afternoon, holed up in Alex's with hot toddies and a marathon of The Wire, Robert finally broached it. "You've been distant. The shoots. Is everything okay?" Alex paused the TV, his face unreadable in the lamplight. "It's nothing, babe. Just pressure, a big pitch coming up. This film's my shot at Sundance." He leaned in, kissing Robert's temple. "You're my safe harbor. Don't worry." Robert wanted to believe him, clung to the warmth of Alex's arms that night as snow muffled the world outside. But the next morning, while Alex showered, Robert's gaze snagged on a crumpled receipt in the jacket pocket. A hotel bar tab from 2 nights ago, scribbled with a name, Ethan, and a heart. His stomach dropped, the room spinning. Couldn't be. Not again. He confronted Alex that evening over takeout Thai, the steam rising like accusations. "Who's Ethan?" Robert's voice was steady, but his hands trembled, chopsticks clattering to the plate. Alex's fork froze midway to his mouth, color draining from his face. "A colleague. From the crew." "Why?" "The receipt. The text." "Don't bullshit me, Alex." The words hung heavy, the apartment shrinking around them. Alex set down his utensils, rubbing his temples. "Rob, it's not. Save it." Robert stood, chair scraping like a wound. "I dreamed of you my whole life. And this is what I get. Another liar in the dark." Alex reached for him, eyes pleading. "Please, let me explain." But Robert was already grabbing his coat, the door slamming behind him like a final edit. Cut. The streets of Bushwick were a frozen labyrinth, sodium lamps casting long shadows as Robert stumbled toward the J train, tears freezing on his lashes. His phone buzzed. "Alex, come back. It's not what you think." But Robert powered it off, the silence roaring louder than the wind. He ended up at his own place, the loft feeling cavernous and cold, Mark's old sketches mocking him from the walls. He collapsed on the bed, the dreams crashing over him now. The stranger's smile fracturing into shards, blood on the tracks. Days bled into a week of radio silence. Robert called out sick from work, sketching furiously. Dark, jagged lines of trains derailed, lovers with faces half erased. Friends texted concern. His best pal Jamie from design school. "Dude, what happened? You ghosting?" But Robert couldn't summon the words. Betrayal was an old scar, ripped open anew, and Alex? He'd been the dream made flesh, only to prove flesh was frail. On the 8th day, a knock shattered the quiet. Robert opened the door to Alex, snow-dusted and hollow-eyed, holding a manila envelope like a white flag. "I should have told you sooner," Alex said, voice raw. "Ethan, he's my brother. Half-brother, actually. We just reconnected last month." The hotel? Family dinner after the pitch. The text? Him checking in because I'm a mess without you. Robert's knees buckled, relief warring with shame. "Your brother? Why hide it?" Alex stepped inside, closing the door softly. "Because I'm an idiot. And scared. My family's complicated. Dad kicked me out at 16 when I came out. Mom's gone. Ethan's from Dad's affair. Shows up out of nowhere, wanting to bond over shared trauma. I didn't want to drag you into it, not when things were perfect." They sank onto the couch, the envelope spilling photos. Faded Polaroids of a younger Alex, gangly and grinning beside a boy who looked eerily like him. Ethan, maybe 15 years old. See? Alex flipped through them, his hand finding Robert's. No secrets. Just ghosts I thought I'd buried. Robert traced the images, the ache in his chest easing into something tender. I jumped to conclusions. Mark. He cheated. It fucked me up. Alex pulled him close, foreheads touching. I know. And I'm sorry for making you feel that echo. Their kiss was slow, apologetic, rebuilding bridges with every brush of lips. That night, they talked until dawn. About Alex's fractured family, Robert's Ohio exile, the dreams that had led them here. Maybe I dreamed you because you were always coming, Robert murmured, fingers laced in Alex's hair. February thawed the city, and with it, their bond deepened. Alex introduced Robert to Ethan over beers at a dive in Greenpoint. A lanky guy with the same amber eyes, quick with dad jokes and zero judgment. Heard you're the one who tamed my brother's wild heart, Ethan quipped, clinking bottles. Robert laughed, the sound foreign but welcome, as Alex squeezed his thigh under the table. But peace was fleeting. Mid-month, Alex's Sundance submission got rejected. Too raw, not commercial enough. The email read, and he spiraled, holing up in his edit bay, emerging only for whiskey and silence. Robert tiptoed around him, brewing coffee, leaving sketches of encouragement taped to the fridge. A cartoon Alex as a phoenix, rising from film reels. One night, after Alex snapped over a spilled takeout container. Can't you see I'm drowning here? Robert fought back tears. I'm here, Alex. Let me in. The fight escalated. Words like shrapnel. Alex accusing Robert of smothering. Robert hurling Mark's ghost. You're just like him, pushing away when it gets hard. Doors slammed, and Robert stormed out into the sleet, hailing a cab to Jamie's in the village. I love him, he confessed over cheap Merlot. But love's not enough if he won't fight for it. Jamie, ever the pragmatist with her buzzcut and tattoo sleeves, hugged him tight. Then make him. Or walk. But don't half-ass it, Rob. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving over the Hudson as Robert paced Jamie's fire escape, the city stirring below like a beast shaking off sleep. He'd crashed on her couch, dreams evading him for the first time in weeks, replaced by a hollow ache, the kind that whispered you knew this would end. By noon, resolve hardened. He couldn't let fear rewrite their story. He texted Alex. Meet me at the High Line, where it started. 3 p.m., please. The park was a ribbon of melancholy, bare branches clawing at the sky, tourists bundled against the chill. Robert arrived early, hands shoved in his pockets, rehearsing lines like a bad actor. When Alex appeared, hat pulled low, cheeks flushed from the wind, Robert's heart stuttered. You came, he breathed, stepping forward. Couldn't not, Alex replied, voice thick. Rob, about last night. No. Robert held up a hand, pulling a small sketchbook from his coat. Look. He flipped it open. Pages of their life rendered in ink and watercolor. The train smile, high-line kiss, tangled sheets, even the fight, stylized as a storm cloud with lightning hearts. The final page. 2 figures on a bridge, hands outstretched, the city sprawling endless behind them. This is us. Messy, real, but worth it, if we fight together. Alex's fingers trembled as he turned the pages, tears welling. God, you're incredible. I don't deserve this. He closed the book gently, cupping Robert's face. The rejection gutted me, reminded me of every door slammed in my face. But losing you, that's the real end credits. They embraced there, the world blurring to irrelevance. Whispers of I'm sorry, and I love you, weaving through the gusts. From the ashes, they rebuilt. Alex shared his vulnerabilities, letting Robert read raw scripts. Robert opened up about his imposter syndrome, the fear that his art and heart would never be enough. Spring crept in, cherry blossoms dusting the paths like pink confetti, and their love bloomed fiercer, tempered by fire. Yet, the universe, ever the dramatist, had one more act. Late April, Robert's phone rang during a rare quiet afternoon in the loft. Mark's name flashing, a ghost from the grave. He answered, curiosity overriding caution. Rob, it's me. I'm sorry. For everything. Therapy's kicking my ass, but I see it now. How I hurt you. Can we talk? As friends. Robert's grip tightened, pulse racing. Mark, contrite and polished, the architect who'd built walls instead of homes. Why now? He asked, voice steady. Because I miss you, and I think, maybe we could try again. The words landed like a sucker punch, dredging up old flames. Nights of passion before the poison set in. He hung up, mind reeling, and didn't tell Alex. Not yet. Guilt gnawed as they prepped for Alex's next screening. A queer film fest in Tribeca. Robert laughed at Alex's jokes, kissed him goodbye with extra fervor. But the seed sprouted. What if, late nights, he'd stare at the ceiling, Mark's offer a siren song to stability, the loft upgrades, the joint vacations they'd planned but never took. The betrayal brewed slow. Robert met Mark for coffee at a neutral spot in Midtown, telling himself it was closure. But Mark's eyes, still that piercing blue, pulled confessions. I was scared, Rob, of us, but I'm better now. One coffee turned to two, then a walk in Bryant Park, Mark's hand brushing his accidentally on purpose. Robert pulled away, but the spark flickered, familiar, safe. Alex sensed the shift, his touches lingering longer, questions veiled. Everything good at work? He'd ask, and Robert would nod, burying the lie in kisses. The dreams returned, twisted. Alex on the train, but now Mark waited on the platform, arms open, while Alex faded into fog. May's heat wave amplified the tension. Alex's film got buzz, a short about estranged brothers reconciling, inspired by Ethan, and invitations poured in. At the after-party in a Soho warehouse, Robert nursed a gin and tonic, watching Alex charm the crowd, his pride swelling even as guilt soured it. Mark texted, "Missed you at coffee this week. Dinner Friday?" Robert deleted it, but the pull grew. The snap came on a humid Friday, Alex out late at a networking dinner. Robert paced the loft, phone in hand, and called Mark. One dinner. To end this. They met at an Italian spot in the West Village, candlelight softening Mark's edges. Wine flowed, stories resurfaced, the trip to Provincetown, the way Mark used to sketch Robert sleeping. We were good once, Mark said, foot nudging Robert's under the table. We could be again. Robert's resolve cracked. He let Mark pay the check, let him walk him to the subway, let the goodnight kiss happen, brief, searing, a betrayal sealed in the shadows. Numb, he rode home, the train rattling like judgment. Alex was waiting, light on in the kitchen, a beer sweating on the counter. How was your night? He asked, casual, but his eyes, those amber eyes, held storms. Fine. Client dinner. The lie tasted like ash. They went to bed, backs turned, the space between them a chasm. Guilt festered like an open wound. Robert threw himself into distractions. Endless sketches, freelance deadlines. But Alex's distance grew, a mirror to his own. They moved like roommates. Polite breakfasts, perfunctory sex that left Robert emptier. The dreams screamed now. The stranger, Alex, shattered on the tracks, Mark's hand pulling him away. Mid-June, the dam broke. Alex came home early from a shoot, finding Robert's phone on the charger, Mark's texts glowing. Can't stop thinking about last night. Let's make this real. Alex's face crumpled as he scrolled, the betrayal etching lines Robert had never seen. You kissed him. Alex's voice was a whisper, the loft echoing with it. Robert, caught mid-sip of coffee, choked. Alex, I don't. Alex hurled the phone, screen cracking on the floor. After everything, the fights, the rebuilding, you go back to him? Tears streamed, raw fury twisting his features. I trusted you, Rob, with my scars, my dreams. And you. It was a mistake. Robert lunged forward, grasping Alex's arms. One night. Closure. I swear. It meant nothing. Nothing. Alex wrenched free, pacing like a caged animal. You lied. For weeks. While I poured my soul into us. He grabbed his jacket, keys jingling like chains. I need air. Space. Don't follow. The door slammed, and Robert sank to the floor, sobs racking him. The loft, once a haven, closed in, sketches mocking from the walls, the tree from Christmas drooping in the corner. He called Mark, voice venomous. "We're done. For good." Blocked the number, deleted the thread. But the damage was done. Alex vanished for 3 days, radio silence, Jamie texting he's crashing with Ethan. Give him time. Robert wandered the city like a ghost. High Line at midnight, the diner where they'd met, the subway platform where it began. The dreams consumed him. Endless loops of the train, Alex's smile fading, replaced by accusation. On the 4th day, a knock soft, hesitant. Alex stood there, shadows under his eyes, holding the manila envelope from months ago, now stuffed with new photos. Prints from his latest role, candids of Robert laughing, sleeping, alive. "I shot these before," Alex said, voice hoarse. "Wanted to remember you, even if." Robert pulled him inside. No words, just arms wrapping tight. They collapsed on the couch, confession spilling. Robert's fear of losing the dream, Mark's pull as a safety net, Alex's terror of abandonment, rooted in family fractures. "I almost ran," Alex admitted. "To Philly, to Ethan. But these," he tapped the photos. "They pulled me back. You're my frame, Rob. The one that holds it all." Forgiveness wasn't linear. It came in fits, therapy sessions booked jointly, nights where they'd sit cross-legged on the floor, unpacking baggage like old luggage. Robert burned the Mark sketches. Alex deleted old contacts. Summer sweltered on. Their love rekindled in sweat-slicked sheets, rooftop picnics under starless skies. By August, Alex's film screened at a smaller fest, Outfest in LA, and Robert went as his +1. The audience's applause a bomb. Back in New York, Robert's graphic novel found a publisher. The cover. A train hurtling toward light, 2 hands clasped in the window. One autumn evening, mirroring their first, they rode the subway, deliberate hand in hand. To 14th Street, Alex turned, that smile breaking free. "Dreamed of you too, you know, my whole life." Robert leaned in, kissing him soft. "And now we're awake." Fall painted the city in golds and crimsons, leaves crunching underfoot like fragile memories, as Robert and Alex navigated the farmer's market in Union Square. It had been a year since that fated train ride, and the scars, though faded, reminded them of resilience. Robert carried a canvas tote bulging with heirloom apples and artisanal cheese, while Alex balanced a pumpkin pie from the bakery stall, his free arm slung around Robert's waist. "Domestic as hell," Alex quipped, nuzzling his neck. "Who are we?" "The guys who made it," Robert replied, popping a cider donut hole into Alex's mouth. Laughter bubbled easy now, the kind earned through tempests. Therapy had been their North Star weekly sessions in a sunlit office off Washington Square, where Dr. Lena, with her no-nonsense bob and rainbow pin, coaxed out the rot. Robert's abandonment wounds from Mark, Alex's paternal ghosts. "Love isn't a solo edit," she'd say. "It's collaborative." They'd moved in together that spring, pooling rent for a 2-bedroom in Bed-Stuy. High ceilings, exposed brick, a fire escape herb garden that Alex swore would thrive. It didn't. Robert's graphic novel launched to quiet acclaim, reviews praising its visceral queer heart. And Alex's doc picked up distribution on a streaming platform, opening doors to grants and gigs. Success softened edges, but they guarded against complacency. Date nights enforced, check-ins over morning coffee where they'd rate their emotional weather. Sunny, stormy, or fogged. Yet, humanity's messiness lingered. Ethan's visits stirred old currents. The half-brother, now a fixture at barbecues, confessed his own closet struggles, prompting late-night talks that left Alex drained. Robert supported, but jealousy flickered, irrational, but real. When Alex and Ethan bonded over shared blood Robert couldn't touch. "You're my family now," Alex would affirm, sealing it with a kiss, but the doubt whispered. November brought Thanksgiving, a raucous affair at Jamie's with her girlfriend, a gaggle of artists, and Ethan's surprise +1. A burly carpenter named Theo, all tattoos and tender eyes. The table groaned under turkey and tofurkey, stories flying like passes in a pickup game. Robert caught Alex's gaze across the chaos, a silent grateful, and squeezed his knee under the linen. Post-feast, as snow dusted the stoops, they walked home arm in arm, bellies full, hearts fuller. "Remember last year?" Robert mused, breath fogging. "Me bloody-knuckled and broken. You smiling like salvation. Alex halted under a street lamp, pulling Robert close. Best plot twist of my life. Their kiss was slow, seasoned by gratitude, the city humming approval. Winter deepened, holidays a whirlwind. A tree-trimming party where Robert's ornaments, hand-painted trains and smiling strangers, dangled proud. A Hanukkah dinner with Ethan's crew, lax sizzling as stories of survival echoed. New Year's found them on that same rooftop, ball dropping as they vowed not resolutions, but presents. To showing up, every frame. But climax brewed in the quiet of January, when Alex's past resurfaced. Not as specter, but flesh. A call from Philly. Their father, dying of cancer, lungs ravaged by decades of camels and regret. He wants to see you, the hospice nurse said, voice clinical. Alex hung up, face ashen, collapsing beside Robert on the bed. After everything, the disownment, the silence, now. Robert held him as sobs shook loose. Rage, grief, the boy's plea for a father's nod. You don't owe him, Robert said, but Alex's eyes burned. Maybe I do. For closure. For me. The drive south was tense, highways blurring under wipers, classic rock low on the stereo. Robert drove, hand on Alex's thigh, a tether. The hospice smelled of antiseptic and wilted flowers. The man in the bed a husk of the tyrant from old photos. Gaunt, tubes snaking, eyes milky but sharp. Son, he rasped as Alex entered, Robert hovering in the hall. Words tumbled, accusations. You broke me, Dad. Threw me out like trash for loving who I love. Met with wheezes. I was wrong. Scared. Forgive. Alex's fists clenched, tears carving tracks. Not yet. Maybe never. But I'm here. That's something. They left with no tidy bow, Alex silent for miles, then breaking. He looked so small, like I feel sometimes. Robert pulled over at a rest stop, cradling him in the front seat. You're vast, Alex. To me. To the world. Back in New York, the funeral loomed. A sparse affair, Ethan at Alex's side, Robert his anchor. Eulogies were brief, rain lashing the gravesite like judgment. Afterward, at a diner echoing their first, Alex raised a coffee mug. To the dead and the living. His smile, tentative, bloomed full when Robert mirrored it. Spring renewal hit hard. Alex channeled the grief into a new project. A series on queer reconciliation, interviews with sons and fathers mending, or not. Robert illustrated the companion book, panels aching with authenticity. Their love, battle-tested, flowered in small graces. Lazy Sundays in Prospect Park, picnics with Jamie's dog. Impulsive trips to the cloisters, hands clasped in medieval halls. By summer solstice, on a whim, they booked a weekend in the Catskills. A cabin by a lake, no signal, just them. Evenings by the fire, Alex strummed a borrowed guitar, voice husky on folk tunes. Mornings, Robert sketched the dawn over water, Alex's head on his shoulder. One twilight, as fireflies danced, Alex knelt. Not with a ring, but a vow. I dreamed of a stranger too, you, and now, I want every tomorrow with you. No scripts, just us. Robert pulled him up, kissing through tears. Yes, to all of it. The year wheeled to November again, the anniversary dawning crisp. They rode the subway, same line, same car. Alex's head on Robert's shoulder, a sketchpad balanced on knees. The 14th Street, doors opened, and Alex smiled, that smile eternal. Hook, line, and sinker, he murmured. Robert laughed, heart full. The dream's just beginning. In the end, it wasn't perfection they found, but profundity. Love as verb, as choice, as the quiet revolution of two souls choosing each other amid the roar. New York pulsed on, indifferent witness, but for Robert and Alex, the tracks led home. Together, awake, alive.